My parents didn't kick me out. They just gave my room to my little sister and told me to sleep on the floor. No warning, no conversation. Just my belongings shoved into boxes and left in the hallway, like I had never lived there. I had just come back from a job fair. Still wearing my blazer, still holding my portfolio. And suddenly, the place I called home no longer had a space for me. Maddie, 17, was already moving in. She had mentioned wanting my room before, jokingly I thought. But now her posters were going up on the wall where my architecture models used to sit. Her vanity was in the spot where I'd spent hours designing blueprints. You can crash in the living room, my mom said, as if she were offering me a hotel couch and not the cold hardwood floor of the home I helped keep clean. I was 27, graduated with honors, still job hunting in the middle of a brutal recession, and now apparently not even worthy of a bed. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. They thought I'd accept it. That I'd keep cooking dinner, cleaning the bathroom, paying bills from my savings, while being treated like clutter. They had no idea. I didn't plan to fight. I planned to disappear. In the most unforgettable way possible. Have you ever been treated like a backup character in your own family? If you have, I hope you stay with me. Because this story doesn't end where they left me. Begins right there. On the floor. The first night on the floor felt surreal. I laid out the old sleeping bag from our camping trips, positioned myself between the coffee table and the TV, and stared at the ceiling, wondering how it had come to this. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the fridge, every muffled laugh from upstairs. They all reminded me that I was no longer part of the household. I was just there. In the morning, I woke before anyone else. My back ached. My neck was stiff. I rolled up the sleeping bag, tucked it behind the sofa, and acted like nothing had changed, because in their eyes nothing had. Over breakfast, my mother chatted excitedly about Maddie's new curtains. My dad suggested paint samples for her study corner. No one asked how I slept. No one noticed the red marks on my face from the hardwood floor. I kept quiet, but inside, I was building something. Not bitterness. Not exactly. More like steel. Layer by layer. Each dismissal, each careless comment, became the foundation for what I was about to do. By the end of that week, my body had adjusted to the floor, but my spirit had not. I was still job hunting, sending applications, making follow-up calls, and then a spark. Hartley and Finch, a mid-size architecture firm in the city, invited me for an interview. They specialized in sustainable design. It was exactly what I'd studied, exactly what I loved. When I told my mom over dinner, she barely looked up from her salad. "That's nice," she said, before turning back to Maddie. "So how did the math competition go, sweetheart?" I smiled through it. Not because I was okay, but because I knew something they didn't. The interview went better than I could have hoped. They asked real questions, listened to my answers, respected my ideas. When I showed them my thesis project, a redesign of low-income housing using passive cooling systems, the lead architect actually took notes. "You've got vision," she said. "We'll be in touch." Driving home that day, I didn't feel defeated. I felt ready. I didn't tell my parents about it. Not this time. Some things deserve to grow quietly, without being stepped on. Instead, I stopped by a neighborhood I'd always admired, just a few blocks away. Big trees, quiet streets, and as I turned the corner, I saw a house. Small, run down, empty, but something about it made me slow the car. There was a for sale sign in the yard, and behind that sign, the beginning of something else. A thought, a spark, a way out that didn't look like escape, but evolution. I didn't know it yet, but that house was going to change everything. For me, and for them. I didn't call the number on the sign right away. I just sat in my car, engine off, staring at the peeling paint on the porch rails, and the cracked walkway that led up to the front door. Most people would have seen a project, a headache. But I saw potential. I saw freedom. I saw silence that wasn't cold, and space that could actually be mine. The next day, after sending off 3 more applications, I called the number. A woman named Denise picked up. Sweet voice, quick to the point. Yes, the house was still available. Yes, the owner had just dropped the price. No, it hadn't had any offers in weeks. She asked if I'd like to schedule a viewing. I said, I'm already outside. She laughed, then said she'd be there in 10. When she arrived, we walked through the house together. And with every step, I grew more certain. The kitchen was dated. The floors were scratched. The bathroom sink dripped. But the windows faced east. So the mornings would be full of light. And there was a room in the back that I could already see as a studio space. My space. I ran my hand along the dusty windowsill. The bones are good, I said. Denise smiled. That's what I always say before making a smart decision. We sat on the porch steps, and I asked her honestly, if I have a job offer in hand by next week, and solid credit, can we make this happen fast? She nodded. With the right lender, you could be holding keys in less than a month. That night I applied for a mortgage. The next morning, I got the call from Hartley and Finch. They offered me the job, $62,000 a year, with full benefits, and a flexible schedule to support project work. I didn't tell my parents. Not because I was hiding it, but because I was done waiting for their approval to feel real. I accepted the offer, forwarded the contract to my loan officer, and scheduled the closing date with Denise. And then, I went home, to the same living room floor, the same dinner table where Maddie talked about prom dresses, while I cleared dishes, and no one asked about my day. I smiled through all of it, because now, the game had changed. Every morning, I left before sunrise, told them I was meeting contacts or visiting sites. They didn't ask many questions. They were too busy painting Maddie's new bookshelf, or comparing colleges. In truth, I was meeting with contractors, choosing cabinet finishes, getting measurements for solar panels, and reviewing plumbing diagrams, with a pen tucked behind my ear, like I used to do in design labs at school. I opened a separate bank account, transferred my savings, set up direct deposit. Every dollar was mine. The house was old, but it was becoming something new. The tile was replaced. The walls were patched and painted. The wiring upgraded. But the best part? The backyard. Wide, private, with just enough space for something beautiful. And I already knew exactly what it would be, something they couldn't ignore. Over the course of several weeks, the space evolved, and by week 6, the pool was undeniable. I kept pretending I was still jobless, still drifting, still the disappointment they believed I had become. By day, I worked on design plans and sustainability reports. By night, I met with electricians, tile installers, and roofers. I learned how to read quotes like a lawyer, how to negotiate pricing like I was born to bargain. I said yes to energy-efficient windows, said no to granite countertops that looked impressive but weren't me. Every choice, every nail and paint swatched, was mine. At home, nothing changed. At least for them. I still made dinner 3 times a week. Still scrubbed the bathroom. Even after Maddie's study group turned it into a disaster zone. I kept doing the chores not for them, but because stopping would have meant admitting how angry I was. And I wasn't ready to carry that yet. I still slept on the floor, because asking for better would have seemed dramatic. And yet, every morning, I left with my portfolio tucked under my arm, and a quiet smile no one questioned. Until the day I met Heather. She was the lead designer at Coastal Blue Pools, the 3rd contractor I'd spoken with that week. We stood in the backyard of my house, sun slanting across the grass. I want clean lines, I told her. Nothing flashy, but elegant, and a waterfall feature, right over there. I pointed to the exact spot that aligned with my parents' kitchen window. She raised an eyebrow. Bold placement. Intentional, I said, and didn't explain further. She handed me a proposal 2 days later, and I signed without hesitation. The permits came through the following Monday. Excavation began on Wednesday. And the noise? It was glorious. By Friday morning, my dad finally asked, "Have you been hearing that construction next door?" It's been nonstop. I stirred my coffee and shrugged. Maybe someone's moving in. Later that day, I watched from the 2nd floor window of my new home, as my mom peered through her blinds, watching the digger shape out the skeleton of what would become. The most beautiful statement of my life. They still didn't know. Didn't recognize the car parked out front. Didn't notice the color of the curtains. Didn't realize that the woman shaping that empty house was the same one sleeping on their living room floor. That weekend, I packed my last box. Quietly, deliberately, at 5:30 a.m. While they slept, I rolled the sleeping bag one last time, left it neatly in the corner of the room, and placed a note on the kitchen counter. Found a place. Won't need the floor anymore. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a single sentence. To match their single decision. I moved in before sunrise. Unpacked while the world was still quiet. Stood barefoot in the kitchen of my own home. And breathed in a peace I hadn't known in months. That afternoon, as the sun lit up the rippling dirt of the soon-to-be pool, there was a knock at my front door. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I already knew. They had finally noticed. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. My mother stood there, holding a container of lemon bars, her version of an olive branch. My father hovered behind her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Claire," she said, eyes flicking past me into the entryway. "You moved in here?" "Yes," I said. And nothing more. She smiled awkwardly. "Well, we just wanted to say hello. Welcome you to the neighborhood." I suppose. She lifted the container like a peace offering. I didn't take it. My dad cleared his throat. "You didn't tell us you bought this place." "You didn't ask," I replied. There was a pause. "A heavy one." My mom's smile faltered. "We were surprised. You've been so quiet lately." I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who used to braid my hair before school recitals, who now couldn't even see the version of me standing right in front of her. "You moved me out of my room. Without asking," I said quietly. "You told me to sleep on the floor. Until I figured life out. So I did." My father shifted. "We didn't mean it like that. You were struggling. We thought it would push you." "It did," I said. "But not in the way you imagined." My mother finally extended the lemon bars all the way forward. "Can we come in? Talk?" I kept my hand on the doorknob. "No, not yet." Shock flickered across her face. As if no wasn't in the vocabulary a daughter was allowed to use. "This is my home now," I continued. "And entry is by invitation only." She blinked. My father exhaled through his nose. "We're still family," he said. "Family," I echoed. "The kind that steps over someone sleeping on the floor." Instead of asking how they're doing, neither of them spoke. Behind them, I saw Maddie approaching. She stopped halfway up the driveway. Sensing the tension, "I'm not angry," I said. And meant it. I just learned something. About dignity. About silence. And about not waiting to be treated well. My mother tried again. "We made mistakes. But we love you." "I believe that," I said. "But love without respect is just obligation dressed up in sweet words." They didn't have a reply for that. From the backyard, a sudden burst of noise. Gravel shifting. Drills humming. Reminded them of what had been unfolding. Right under their noses. "What's all that?" my dad asked, trying to look past me. "Renovations," I said. "Already?" My mom blinked. "You just moved in." I gave her a long look. "I've owned this house for 6 weeks. The silence that followed was louder than the machines outside. I didn't slam the door. Didn't raise my voice. Just closed it gently. Leaving them on the porch. Facing a version of me they never bothered to imagine. Through the front window, I watched them retreat. Slowly. Wordlessly. Only Maddie glanced back. Only she looked at me. Not with confusion, but with something else. Maybe curiosity. Maybe shame. I wasn't sure yet, but I knew I'd find out soon. The pool took shape. Faster than they expected. By the end of week 6, the outline was no longer just noise and dust. It was undeniable. A sleek rectangle carved into the earth, lined with jet black tile, and surrounded by smooth slate pavers. The waterfall feature went up last. A clean stone column, perfectly positioned, in the direct line of sight. From my parents' kitchen window, the day they installed it, my mother showed up again. Not at the front door this time, but the back gate, where the sound of water had just started to flow. She didn't knock. She just stood there, watching the cascade glimmer in the late afternoon sun. "This feels excessive," she said, arms folded. I turned from where I was adjusting potted plants along the fence. "I don't think so." She frowned. "It's a statement." I looked her dead in the eye. "Yes, it is." There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "Are you trying to make us feel guilty?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm trying to make sure I never feel invisible again." She shifted her weight. "I think you're reading too much into what happened." "And I think," I said gently, "you're still trying to shrink what you did, so you don't have to carry the weight of it." That silenced her. She looked away, toward the pool, toward the house, anywhere but at me. "I never meant to hurt you," she said finally. "I just didn't think it would matter that much." "That's the problem," I replied. "You didn't think I mattered that much." She didn't respond. That weekend, I hosted a gathering. Just a few colleagues from work, some neighbors, and my mentor from Hartley and Finch. There was soft music, lemon-infused cocktails, laughter drifting through open windows, and just beyond the privacy fence, my parents could see it all, every moment of the life they never imagined I could build. Without them, a few neighbors stopped by the fence, curious. Caroline from across the street brought a housewarming plant. Larry Mitchell nodded in approval. "Didn't expect this one to flip so fast," he said. "You made it beautiful." I thanked him. But the real satisfaction wasn't in their praise. It was in knowing I no longer needed it. I spotted Maddie standing at the end of the sidewalk, arms crossed, unsure. I walked over, offering a quiet smile. "Nice pool," she said, eyes wide. "I didn't think you'd actually do it." "I did." She paused. "Can I come in?" "Not tonight," I said softly. "But maybe soon." She nodded. Didn't argue. Just looked around one more time before heading back across the lawn. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, the pool lights came on, casting shifting reflections across the stone. I slipped off my shoes, sat on the edge, and dipped my feet into the water. The cool rush of everything I'd built, washing over me. This wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Not about who they were, but about who I had become. Summer settled in, and with it, a strange quiet between us. My parents no longer knocked. No more lemon bars. No more half-hearted apologies, thinly wrapped in small talk. They watched from a distance now, literally and emotionally, and I let them, because some boundaries aren't punishments. They're protection. But Maddie kept showing up. First, just to say hi. Then with iced coffee in hand. Then one day with tears in her eyes. "I shouldn't have taken your room," she said quietly. I knew it was wrong, but I liked the way they looked at me when I moved in. Like I was finally the important one. Her honesty cut deeper than blame ever could. But it was also healing. "You were 17, I said. "They should have protected us both, not pit us against each other." She nodded slowly. "I didn't realize how bad it was until I saw where you ended up sleeping." "I'm sorry." This time I invited her in. She walked through the house slowly, taking it all in. The clean modern kitchen, the airy workspace in the back, the pool glistening in the afternoon sun. "You did all this," she whispered. I nodded. "I did. Alone. Completely." She looked at me differently after that. Not as the sister who used to fix her math homework, but as a woman who had rebuilt her life. One tile, one contract, one quiet decision at a time. "I want to be like you," she said. "But maybe with less tile dust." I laughed. And for the first time in a long time, it felt real. She started coming over weekly. Sometimes we talked about college. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. Just floated in the pool, letting the silence be something sacred, instead of sharp. One afternoon, as we were planting herbs along the side fence, she paused. "Do you think they'll ever get it?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pressed a basil root into the soil and watched it settle. "Maybe," I said finally. "Maybe not. But that's no longer my responsibility." And that was the truth. I didn't build this life to prove them wrong. I built it to prove to myself that I never needed their permission to take up space. 1 year after I moved in, I hosted a housewarming party. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Marissa from Hartley and Finch came. So did Aunt Lynn. and half my project team. We laughed, we danced, we toasted with sparkling cider under string lights. And as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, I stood on my porch, looking at what I had created. Not just the house, but the peace, the autonomy, the clarity. From across the fence, I saw my father watching again. He lifted a hand in a tentative wave. This time, I waved back, not with anger, not with longing, just neutrality, a soft acknowledgement of shared blood, but separate paths. That night, after the last guest had gone, I stood by the pool one last time, feet bare, air cool on my skin, and I said goodbye to the version of me who once believed love and dignity were the same thing. They're not. Love is optional. Dignity isn't. So if you're still listening, if you've ever been made to feel like an afterthought, in the very place you were supposed to feel most safe, let me say this. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to outgrow the floor. You're allowed to build a life so radiant, so undeniable, that no one ever forgets. You were worth the space all along. Thank you for listening to my story. And if it resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need this reminder. Your worth is not up for debate. Not then. Not now. Not ever.